What was the most bizarre school rule you had in your school? Our handbook stated that you could only address teachers as Mr., Mrs., Miss, Miss, Drive, or Coach. The 60-year-old woman, who was in no way involved with athletics, that taught biology, tried to write a referral to one of my friends who insisted on calling her coach for insubordination. Admin couldn't do anything about it, so they removed coach from the list of acceptable names and reissued the handbook. This is hilarious. Around my last year of primary school, Brit here, they suddenly added a rule where you can't talk during your lunch. They said it was so we'd have more time to play afterwards. But you'd have to wait to be dismissed first, so how long it takes to eat doesn't matter at all. At first everyone was silent apart from a few whispers behind the teachers' backs. But then it transitioned into everyone talking quietly. I think the teachers gave in at that point as they said that we can talk as long as it's quiet. Then everyone learned to gradually get louder, so by the time I left it was back to normal level. Edit. At my prep school I went to for a year after that, we managed to get rock paper scissors banned. It's a long story. Edit 2. Since everyone's asking, here's the rock paper scissors story. So towards the end of the year I spent at my prep school, my year group was on a coach coming back from a school trip. Each year was small enough to fit onto one coach. I think the entire school only had about 100 or so people, where behind me were two classmates were playing rock paper scissors with a twist. If you get rock you punch the other person. If paper you slap them, and if scissors you pinch them. This didn't take long to spread around the whole year, and eventually the whole school was doing it. It became so popular that in the last couple of weeks, the head teacher made an announcement in an assembly that, forgot what they called this version of rock paper scissors, is banned as it was getting out of hand. I thought this was fair enough, but a second later the head said that because said version of rock paper scissors comes from the original version, it will be banned in its entirety. After that everyone was talking about if they should do rock paper scissors just to see if they get punished. Doubt they would though. You just reminded of the stupidest shit I ever saw. When I was in 5th grade there were these awful stoplight looking pieces of shit that had microphones installed on them to gauge how loud the ambient noise was. There were like 6 of them, and if a single one read too high then the entire room had to be silent for 5 minutes. And if a single kid made a sound, the entire table they were at would be kept inside for recess. They were also set to be stupidly sensitive. After a month, a group of kids grabbed screwdrivers and turned all of the sensitivity knobs down to minimum. That worked for a while, but eventually the lunch monitors realized and had a janitor reset them. On the 3rd month, some kid brought a slingshot and pegged one with a steel ball. It fell off the wall and hit some other kid in the head. That was on a Friday, and when we came back on Monday they were gone. And the lunch monitors had a shiny new megaphone. Huh. My university has those in the library, but they only light up. They are more of a polite reminder to be courteous rather than a control tactic. No curly hair, unless it was natural. What the duck lol. I live in a place where it gets very hot during the day, so when it got too hot for us to play outside during recess, they would make us all sit down and do nothing while still outside. Interesting. How hot does it usually get? Over 100 degrees Fahrenheit all summer, around 110 during June to August. To that both happened in high school. No high fives, as administration considered it bullying. They never once explained how, but it was. They banned any drink that wasn't water or plain milk. They would actually check lunch bags as kids entered to make sure they weren't sneaking anything in. They were especially hard on hot beverages. The years before, high schoolers could have coffee/tea from home, but then they became convinced we were adding sugar to it and banned it. I was getting over laryngitis once and had a travel mug of hot water with honey and lemon like my doctor suggested, and the bitch of a gym teacher snatched it and dumped it, even though I had a doctor's note. Bonus, we were a K-12 school. They gave 18-year-old seniors the same size portions as 6-year-old kindergarteners. Aka 3 chicken nuggets and 4 carrot sticks. Then they'd bitch at the older kids if they brought snacks and stuff to eat. No high fives, as administration considered it bullying. They never once explained how. but it was. The principal was definitely too slow on the down low. You had to finish all the food on your plate. The worst part was that my teacher made me put on foods that I didn't like eating. So I told her that I will get nauseous, but she didn't listen. It didn't take long until I got so nauseous that I threw up all over the table. Homeschool? No. But I'm from Europe, if you were confused. I know American schools are different. My elementary school banned soccer for 3 years because I hit the teacher's assistant with the ball as I went to shoot. She was bending down to tie her shoe in the middle of the field. My school banned kickball for a year because we couldn't decide on teams. Not necessarily a bizarre rule, but in 8th grade my school literally had to remind everyone to only use their Google Drive for school purposes because some student used over a terabyte of storage for memes. I wonder who it was. Memes. I guess we'll never know. No mechanical pencils. Also was a rule at my school. We would tear them apart and trade the pieces to customize them, and they eventually had their own economy. It was deemed too distracting, and they got banned. That happened in my school with Pokemon cards. I swear there was like a whole cartel running in my school. Kids were getting into fights because their cards were stolen. Kids would try to bring fake to try to fool the younger kids. It got crazy. No reading your own book after finishing your classwork. During exams at school, internal ones, we used to sit in the exam hall for the whole week. A bunch of us finished our exams on Thursday morning because of the subjects we chose to study. So we brought reading books. About an hour later we were told we weren't allowed to read. When we asked what we were supposed to do, the teachers told us to study. When we said we had nothing to study for, they were stunned. So instead of admitting they were wrong, they instead told us to just sit there. Now I don't know if any of you have had to sit at a desk in a school hall for 2 days straight with nothing to distract you but your angsty teenage thoughts. But it's pretty close to how I imagine solitary confinement in prison is. I colored in all the enclosed areas in the letters on my worksheets. That's all I had to do. Off the top of my head, my high school had a rule that you had to register your car with the school if you wanted to drive to school. That wouldn't be totally weird until you consider that my high school was in a very urban area and only had one small lot that was for faculty only. Students had to park on the street. So in other words, we had to get a pass from the school in order to park on the public streets. I remember my high school charged $5 for a parking permit per year, but you could also park on the street for free. Then I talked to a couple of friends who went to rural schools and learned they paid $50 per year where there was no street parking. This was my first lesson in price elasticity. At my school, I graduated in 2015. A parking permit to park in the school lot for the year was $250 and there was no street parking. If you couldn't afford it, which most kids couldn't, you either had to risk parking away from the school and getting towed or ticketed, or you couldn't drive to school. Also, I went to a voltage school and we literally were not allowed to drive more than one student home after school, and that one student had to have a permission slip signed by their parents. I missed the bus one day and literally couldn't get a ride home from another student after school hours. How it was legal to enforce this rule, I have zero idea. No backpacks allowed. In a high school where lockers were severely lacking, so each locker had 3 people using it. My high school had a no bags allowed rule, but also you couldn't have a lock on your locker. But also you weren't supposed to have your phone in your pockets during class. None of the teachers actually enforced any of that, but the principal would sometimes try to make people follow his dumb rules. Plot twist, your principal was just trying to steal everyone's stuff. Anyone caught with a chestnut gets suspended. There was a chestnut tree, wild horse chestnut, in the schoolyard. So one of the activities during recess was of course having chestnut wars when they were in season. As soon as we'd get out, everyone would pick up as many as they found, take cover, and start launching them at each other. We were all often bruised by it, but no one was a specific target, so it wasn't bullying. I guess we all saw it as more of a friendly sport. It was the status quo and the school didn't seem to mind much. Until someone threw one so hard it cracked the window on a teacher's car. A kid admitted it was him, but still. It turned into a big thing, and they got strict about not allowing it. After years and years of not seeing each other, a few months ago, by an unrelated sad circumstance, a handful of us from class got reunited for a lunch and walk about town. Someone mentioned the chestnut incident, and as we talked about it, one of the guys said it was actually me who cracked that window. I'm sure of it. I threw that chestnut and followed it with laser focus until it hit that car by accident. I knew it was me, but no one else did. And then the other kid admitted to it. I never learned why he did. But of course I never complained. Apostrophe. Haha. Reminds me of the Akon fights we used to have. Girls weren't allowed to tie their hair into a bun. Untied hair, however, wasn't an issue. Just asking, was the principal a woman? Yep. So were the teacher in charges. I don't know if it's really bizarre, but dress code for the girls. They aren't even allowed to show shoulders. Last year they almost banned Crocs because someone was offended cause they saw some girls' feet. For the girls who are dress coded, they automatically either get ice or they have to cover the showing part of skin with duct tape or toilet paper. Ugh, yes. We had the no shoulder showing rule for girls, but cleavage was okay. It was always the joke that guys are turned on by the bare shoulder and never the female chest. Lol. We had a similar joke, but I was about their ankles. Just to bear in mind, this was an all-girls grammar school. Shoes could only be black, brown or navy blue. This also applied to hairbands, hair ties, no trainers, sneakers, or boots. Socks, white or navy, had to be pulled up at all times. Write only in fountain pen. Pencil is allowed for notes or draft versions. If you make a mistake, cross it through with a ruler and put brackets around it. You have to cover your exercise books. Most people used wrapping paper or sticky backed plastic. I've seen weirder dress codes before. Write only in fountain pen. Hol up. What? You school banned ballpoints? Us too. We also could only use an italic nib. Once you got to 6th form you could use biros though. No Windows laptops. Yeah, that one still confuses me to this day. School board was on the take from Apple, obviously. Probably a deal with Google actually. Schools seem to love Chromebooks for some reason. We aren't allowed to say $5 and half a chicken biscuit. I wanna know the story behind that. I apologize for my bad storytelling skills. Where I live we have the elementary school, the middle school, the 9th grade academy, and the high school. So last year, 2 high school boys decided it would be a good idea to sneak into a band room and have sex. They told another guy that if he filmed it, they would pay him with $5 and half a chicken biscuit. He agreed. Soon after, the video had made its way to pretty much every school in my city. Everyone had seen it, and those who hadn't had heard about it. Eventually the police heard about it and went to every school to talk to us kids about why what happened was a big no-no. Parents were outraged, and I heard the boys got expelled, but it wasn't confirmed. So because of that, no one is allowed to mention or even write down the words $5 and half a chicken biscuit. At one point, when I was in primary school, they banned running in the playground. Same. Tag was banned. Also couldn't walk faster than the person in front of you ever. So if you were behind a slow kid waiting for his mom, you were forced to miss the bus home. That's it. I'm officially convinced that elementary school is meant entirely as some kind of grinder for wearing down children's souls. Not a school rule, but one guy in my grade passed the year for the sole reason that he was the only drummer in the school, and he threatened to change the school if he had to repeat the year. Our principal didn't want our band not to have a drummer, so the guy passed. Lol, that guy is a genius. Monopolize the drummer position and then blackmail the school so you don't have to work. In high school we formed a union of about 20 high scoring app students to collectively bargain against a rule that we had to arrive early to school and wait in the office when we did not have an early class. We threatened to intentionally flunk our CSTs, the standards test that gets the school its funding, if any of us got punished for arriving late. It worked nicely. In 11th and 12th grade we had 4 get out of jail cards per half year. You could hand those in after missing up to 2 days without an excuse. The problem was that if you were late for more than 45 minutes you had to use one of those. So if I overslept and calculated that I will miss more than 45 minutes, I decided that I might as well stay home for a day or two. And I wasn't the only. I mean, to be honest, this sounds like a pretty good way to reduce the stress that schooling has on kids. Hey, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.